Good evening, I'm Dr. Gus Penix, and I'm a member of the Nicholas County Board of Education, and I'll be standing in until we elect a new president here in a few minutes. And I'd like to call this the regularly scheduled July the 5th, 2022 meeting to order at this time. Would you please rise and join me in this moment of silent reflection? It gives us the opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, but also to prepare our hearts and minds for the business we're going to hear here this evening. So, moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May be seated. This time, our next item of business is the swearing in by the Honorable Judge Stephen O'Callaghan. And we thank you, sir, for joining us this evening to swear in Mr. Berry. I would point out that Mr. Green and Mr. Prime were both sworn in last Friday, July the 1st, by the judge at the courthouse. And so at this time, Mr. Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Penix, for having me.
You're very welcome, sir.
You have it. There it is.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Okay, raise your right hand. Left hand on the Bible. Please repeat after me. I, Phil Berry,
I, Phil Berry,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of West Virginia,
the Constitution of the State of West Virginia.
and I will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
the duties
the duties
of member of Nicholas County Board of Education,
of member of the Nicholas County Board of Education,
Nicholas County, West Virginia,
Nicholas County, West Virginia,
beginning July 5th, 2022,
beginning July 5th, 2022,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment.
so help me God.
So help me God.
He's good. So here, that's your gift. And I'll take this.
Our next item of business is the election of a board president. This is the biennial meeting of the Board of Education, which occurs after every primary election. And at the biennial meeting, we are to reorganize with the election of new officers for the Board of Education. At this time, I'll entertain motions for the position of president of the board.
I nominate Mr. Bryan.
I'll second. Any further nominations? Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Price signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Madam Secretary, Mr. Prine is elected president of the board by a unanimous vote, and at this time, I'll hand over the gavel.
Okay, so we will now have nominations for vice president.
I nominate Roy Moose.
Second.
We have a nomination for Roy Moose by Mr. Green and a second by Mr. Berry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item will be the SESC representative. Do we have any motions to have a representative?
I would recommend Mr. Penix for that, if he would want it.
he's familiar with them.
I served the last 2 years in that position, but if nobody else, I'll.
I'll second it.
We have a motion for nomination for Mr. Penix from Mr. Berry, second by Rick Green. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Penix, if I'm doing this wrong, you gotta correct me.
You're doing fine.
Moving right along.
All righty. Next on the agenda, board election, item D, West Virginia University Extension Committee member.
I would nominate Mr. Berry if he's willing to serve it. Have you served in it before?
Yes, several years. But that's, if somebody else wants to try it, that's fine.
Second.
You'd like to try
I second the nomination.
it?
I guess I should be asking any other nominations. Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Berry to be the Extension Committee member, WVU Extension Committee member. Dr. Penix, sorry,
That's okay.
nominating, seconded by Mr. Moose. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the board election for the Bright Horizons representative. I believe Ms. Kaufman served in that capacity in the past.
Nominate Mr. Green.
I'll second.
Any other nominations?
She's lucky to get one for these.
We have a nomination for Mr. Green for the Bright Horizons representative, nominated by Mr. Moose, seconded by Dr. Penix. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And here's a big one. Board election, item F, replacement for Ms. Kaufman on the weekly construction planning awareness call.
What is that?
That's where there's a call, we generally have it once a week, sometimes we may not have it, but it's generally about just to bring us up to date on payment of invoices of what the construction is happening in regard to both sites, the Cherry River site and the Glade Creek site, and basically it's information. Then the superintendent presents to the board generally what's in this call. And I have been serving on that for the past, I guess we've been doing about three years.
And I'm assuming you'll stay on it and we'll elect one to replace.
I assume, but I think we can change it if it needs to be.
Well,
I'm nominating Chip. You want
that was mine.
I was going to nominate Roy.
I'll just move back.
I decline. I second his nomination of Mr. Prime.
Who made it?
Mr. Berry.
Okay.
So any other nominations? So we have a nomination for Mr. Prine to be the replacement for Ms. Kaufman on the weekly construction planning awareness call, nominated by Mr. Moose, seconded by Mr. Berry. Or did I do that backwards?
You got it.
Sorry.
Nominated.
Nominated by Mr. Berry, seconded by Mr. Moose. Sorry. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next on the agenda is item 4, approval of the minutes of the meetings on June 16th and June 21st, 2022.
Mr. President, I don't know whether y'all had opportunity to read over the minutes. And I know, given the time frame, if you haven't, we can table this until the next meeting, or if you,
No, the executive secretary sent us an email with all this stuff. Mr. Hanshaw tried to set us up and it didn't work, but he's working on it. So anyway, I looked over everything and, you know, it's hard for me. I mean, I was here at the meeting, but it's hard for me to disagree with what's on there because, so, thank you.
I make a motion we accept June 16th.
I'll second the motion.
And 21st.
Well, yeah, you want to get the 21st too?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
There's
Okay.
something on the 21st, I think. Just a second. We had, it's just a minor thing, but I think we had a date wrong or a time wrong for the meeting. Let me see if I can find it. The special meeting that we had,
23rd,
what was the date of that?
June the 23rd.
June 23rd. Yeah, it says starts at 5. We started
10
at
o'clock.
10, didn't we?
Yeah.
Good catch. 10 a.m.
Is that under number 12? Is that where it's called?
It's on June the 23rd.
21st.
12 a.m.
23rd.
12 a.m. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Maybe, that night.
So do we have a motion to approve the June 16th and June 21st meetings with the correction of the one date, or the one time, which should have been 10 o'clock instead of 5?
I make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Berry, motion, and seconded by Dr. Penix. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is discussion items, update from ZMN.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having us here. Just a quick update on construction and design progress. The projects are both at Richwood and here in Summersville. We'll have a few with us this evening, the folks from Skanska as well. They're going to provide a little bit more information on the construction update and have some progress photos to go through. I'll just give you a quick design update. We're currently working on construction documents for the Cherry River Richwood schools. We're proceeding with the reductions to policy 6200. Based on this schedule, we are looking to come back to the board with approval in September 2022 for construction documents. We're prepared to go to bid at that time. And construction would commence approximately in December of 2022. Depending on the contractors allowed to, as we stated earlier on, contractors allowed to complete the construction date on the bid form, but we would estimate construction to be completely completed in March of 2025. For the Glade Creek site, Nicholas County High School, Summersville Middle School, we're working on design development documents. Again, those are the reductions back to policy 6200. We would be scheduled to be in front of the board here in December of 2022 for approvals on design development. And then December. And then construction documents are scheduled to be submitted to the board approval in February. There's no one, correct? Just making sure. Yep, that's right. Just want to make sure of that. And based on that schedule, again, the contractor would be completing the construction schedule, the form on bid form, stating the number of calendar days. But construction would commence approximately May of '23, and completion would be August of '25. This one.
You can do that, that's about the cost proposal.
So one quick update on the mass grading package that's going on the Lake Creek site for Nicholas County High School and Summersville Middle School. A couple things just to note. We will be requesting a cost proposal from M&H Construction to surcharge the building pad. What that means is that the building pad was originally designed for the building contractor to mobilize next, and would then probably do that within around a 60-day period. With the current redesign of the building, what that's going to result is that that pad would sit for almost 11 months in the weather. We'd like to surcharge that pad, get it sloped so that it's shedding water. That way we're not looking at unsuitable soil materials on the building pad area, and we're having to do additional dollars spent in that area. So this is a little bit of preventative maintenance. It'll allow us to put a few feet of soil up on that area. It'll allow it to drain. It'll protect the building pad. That will also reduce the potentials of some delays and some additional costs moving forward. That is built, we do have allowances built into the contract, so it would not necessarily be the change order. It's money that's already included in the contract and some of the allowances. We anticipate it to remain in those allowances. The other update, with one of the concerns we have with the delay in the next contractor being on site, and M&H's scheduled completion in November of this year. The concern that we have is maintaining the site for erosion and sediment control. We have an active DEP permit on the site. DEP will visit the site. If there's not a contractor present that's suitable to find. That's also problematic to make sure that we have those measures maintained. So one of the things we're looking at is issuing a site utility and erosion control maintenance package. That would be something that we potentially could have out and possibly have to you all for approval in September. We'd like to get it a little bit sooner, but it looks like it might be September. What that will allow us to do is have a mass utility, what we're going to refer to as the mass utilities, and that's basically bringing the utilities from out beyond the property line all the way into the site, and we'll bring them inside of what we'll refer to as the ring road. There's a road that goes around, completely around the building. We're just wanting to stud those utilities roughly inside of that ring road so that we can make connections to the building to that location. It also does a couple other things. It allows that contractor who's already got equipment on site to maintain some of those erosion and sediment control measures. And that way you're really not paying an additional cost to that. That's just a product of the contractor already being on site. So we see that as a cost savings. The site utility package would be a prime contractor, would typically be a site contractor, not a building contractor. The site utilities were originally geared to be in the building construction contract, but we're trying to watch the dollars. We think that that would actually save money to have it as a prime contract and not have the additional GC markup on that package. So we could potentially be saving some money on the site. But it would also allow us to take care of the DEP issue and concern. This is you. Thanks, man.
We already approved those changes, but they're not ready to go to the school building authority,
Which changes are you referring to?
Cherry River and the Glade River.
We have to redesign those. The design we showed you was just the floor plan. We have the construction documents that we're currently revising at this point in time. So those are not ready to go yet. We're still working on those documents, and they will be issued.
How long do you think that will take?
Well, we will be ready. So the Richwood High School, Richwood Middle, Cherry River Elementary School, we'd be bringing drawings back to you in September for approval to go to bid at that point in time.
And then it goes to the SBA. And how long will that take? 30 days?
Well, it's less than 2 weeks.
They take around 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Our timeline used to be 10 days, 10 working days.
And then the bid process?
30.
30, this one will probably, we'll probably extend it to at least 5 weeks. So it's going to be around that time frame. But this would allow construction to commence in December. We're trying to get construction to start before the end of the school year, or the end of the fiscal year.
Any chance at all that happening before September?
To get those revised? I mean, we're talking, if you haven't seen the set of documents that was bid, I would encourage you to take a look at them if you have a chance, didn't have a chance yet. They're in the superintendent's office. It's 2 volumes, there are over 300 sheets of documents, and we're basically touching 75–80% of those sheets in revisions. So it just takes time. We are trying to ramp it up and do it as fast as we can, but that's a pretty reasonable window to get us in here and get ready to submit.
Are the access roads included in the Glade Creek estimate? The roads in and out? Has that been taken care of?
In the building contract,
Yeah.
yes. The final paving and all that's in the building contract for the access.
And
all the access
So
roads,
the
green
money, the
roads.
estimated cost includes that construction of?
Yes.
Yes.
It has to.
Right.
Yes, it has to.
Okay.
And we will probably be going for you all and delaying the pavement package for the Glade Creek site. The problem we're having is that construction being almost 30 months long or longer, the concern is you're asking a contractor to hold an asphalt price almost 28 months, 29 months, and with fuel prices the way they are, you're probably not going to get a realistic number. So one of the things we can do is get that geared up and have that bid closer to the time that it's going to be done, so you're getting an actual market price and not a guess price.
I know you'll move as fast as you can, but are prices still going up?
Lumber has gone down some, other prices have either stayed steady, some have increased slightly, and then lead times are still a factor too, especially with HVAC equipment, things like that.
That tends to be the bigger issue right now is lead
Yeah,
times.
it's not so much the cost will start to come down a little bit, but it's lead times, it's, in some products, some manufacturers have stopped making some things because they just can't produce it fast enough, so they're going to stop for a while.
Electrical gear is probably one of the longest lead time items right now. For electrical entrances, electrical main distribution panels, those are pushing, they're actually pushing 12, 13 months, even 14 months right now.
It's over a year right now.
So even if you were doing a small renovation and you had to update your gear, your electrical gear, that project may only be a 60-day project, but it may take you a year to actually do. So we're seeing more material shortage issues, but some of the costs are stabilizing.
Could we put the job site out, prepping the Cherry River site, get the site prep done early, or?
At this point, I mean, where we are, you know, we are just now in the month of July. To do that, we might only gain a month at the top, but we've already done some of the stormwater work and some of the paving and the laydown work is already prepped for the next stage of the contractor.
Yeah, we kind of already did some of the site prep there on the, the one side that we could. Anything else would be kind of obstructive, I think, to keep the school operating.
And the utility part of it, the utility side, utilities are not the largest portion of what's there on the site work remaining. So a lot of it's in the grading work. And the only concern that we would have is that you would have multiple contracts, multiple contractors. And the one concern with that site being so tight and with the phasing being left up to the contractor and the schedule, there could be a lot of I'm waiting on you, you're waiting on me, and that opens you up to claims. To gain, if we were going to gain 5-6 months, I tell you absolutely. But if we're only talking about a month, probably not realistic.
It's gonna be hard to do anything in the winter on that side.
Yeah.
It will, but we will have, I will tell you this, we do have a good portion of the building that will be closed off to use, so that some of the interior renovations can start. The deep foundations can go through the winter. That's not a big problem or concern because it's a small footprint. They can drill, get those in, and cover those with blankets in the wintertime. It's a lot easier to maintain and do. So we think they'll be able to do some of that work.
We good? Ready for construction? All right. We just did a construction update roughly 30 days ago. So normally I would say not a lot has changed, but a lot has changed. They're moving really well. Continuing to place fill from the blasting cut, which is basically the middle ridge now, as needed in all areas. They're not just working in the building pad, they're working across all areas of the site, from basically the cemetery road all the way to the far retaining wall. Cutting and stockpiling topsoil from the northeast corner, which is the back corner beyond where the old house used to be, all the way back to the middle ridge. And I call the middle ridge is the area basically right in front of the potato chip. Is that Lay's? Pretty late. Yeah. Chip place. Right in front of there. That's the middle ridge. Working on diversion ditches and other erosion and sediment control measures. That's an ongoing issue. DEP makes regular site visits, so they're always having to make improvements to their erosion and sediment control to make sure they're meeting DEP requirements. Blasting hopefully should be complete by today. Heard today from Carson, maybe not. So we may have one more blast left. They've run into a little bit of shale on that middle ridge. They're trying to dig it, and it's working really well. They're getting good chunks out, but if it gets too hard, then they have one more blast to do. So that's good news. Placing manhole vertical extensions and filling to subgrade. On that 48-inch concrete storm line, they're placing the vertical manhole extensions, stacking those on top of each other. You'll see those if you visit the site sticking up out of the ground. And when it gets to the cap point, that's the actual manhole access point itself. And they're filling to grade around those. So that's coming along really well. That's about the only thing remaining on that long 48-inch concrete pipe. Working on northwest and southwest storm retention ponds. That's kind of an as needed. They still have to line those. They still have some minor work to do on the storm retention ponds. They are not in use right now and will not be in use until everything else is completed and they can hold temporary water during storm and rain events. Received final diversion delivery, of corrugated pipe, concrete pipe, vaults, manholes, materials, and ESC measures. So everything is there. It's all there. We did, as of the last update, I thought we had everything. We still had one more delivery. Everything should be on site. So they've got all the stormwater control there and delivered, stockpiled on site over toward Cemetery Hill. These are the update slides. This is the last, or the aerial I used in the last presentation to start or to end with, basically, that showed where we were. You still have some green in this area. You move up, well, the green has creeped back. All that green is gone now as of this photo, and this photo was just taken about a week ago. So they've moved all of this. This is flat. Almost this entire area is tabletop flat. And to put it into scale, that's a dozer right there. That's a very large V8 piece of equipment, and it kind of looks like an ant on an anthill. But this is the retaining wall. That wall is near completion, and as of the last meeting, Chris, what am I doing wrong?
Slide.
There we go. Got to be smart as a board. This is the area of the 48-inch concrete pipe. I showed you a slide of this last time that still showed the pipe being installed in March. Well, as you can see, that pipe is all gone. If you look really, really close, you can see some of the vertical extensions still sticking up. That's what's left to be filled to grade. This is an area of the blasting on the back ridge, kind of the back side of the cemetery beyond where the old house used to be. This is part of the shell that they've had to blast out and relocate across the site. This is an example of a rock core ditch. This one is actually carrying water from a spring that popped up. I was surprised we only had one. But this is a new diversion ditch to help carry the water from that. It's recently been installed. This is they're still doing topsoil removal. And when we thought we moved it all, we still had some to move in the northeast corner. So they're still pushing some topsoil. We have enough topsoil there to probably give everyone a new yard in the county. This is the final footing for the main retaining wall for wall 1. In the last presentation, I showed you the very first footing going in. Now the last footing's going in. So they've moved a whole lot of, and that was what, May, I think, when they started that wall, late April, May. So they've made great progress on that retaining wall, and that's a massive wall. Based on the picture that I submitted showed you last time, this wall has doubled in height. And as a matter of fact, we had a meeting on site 2 weeks ago, and we're waiting on some data that's going to turn into a rappelling wall for the ROTC class. So we'll be able to, kids will have a gate here, they'll have harnessing systems, and they'll be actually able to practice rappelling off this wall. It has that kind of height. That's it.
Mike, how, M&H on their completion, how far was that? 30%, 50%, 40, whatever?
They're near, I think they're just over 60%, I want to say 62, something like that. Now, once we, add some, the cap work on the building pad, and we'll probably knock it down to 50% once we add that to the contract, but yeah, about 62%.
They're doing really well. Even though there was a slight push with the pad changing, they've been able to work everywhere else in the site. So it's not really moved their overall date at all. They look really good.
You mentioned in there that they've leveled off a big portion of that front part there. Is that where when we had the initial
All flat.
groundbreaking?
All flat.
That's all flat?
All flat.
That was extensive.
All flat.
Wow,
Yeah, all flat.
fantastic.
Yeah, basically, if you stand at the job trailer, if you come to the site visit, you come to the job trailer and you can see one of our guys. We've always got 2 guys on site. You'll see that everything, basically from the job trailer looking straight back to your right, back toward the cemetery, is tabletop. And if you go right around that middle ridge, the same thing on the other side. That's where you head toward wall 1.
On your original picture, the first picture, could you show us school site?
Yeah. Come on, man, baby. Don't fight that. Be smarter than me. Come on, Mike. There we go. That's it. The school roughly sits, okay, the high school entrance is roughly, Chris, now help me here, is roughly right here. So you would be pulling into the school, the parking, main parking's here. The football fields are here, or the athletic fields. Baseball's here. Middle school entrance here, CTE entrance on this end. So the cameras that are on site that have been placed, there's one right here that sits on a telephone pole that essentially looks toward what will be the high school entrance. There's one up here on the tree line that looks to what will be eventually the CTE entrance. And the one down here by the cemetery looks toward what would be the middle school entrance.
They eliminated the athletic fields.
Well, they still have to prep that space. That's still part of the contract to actually prep. Come on now. I gotta stop touching the screen, Mike. They still have to prep that area. You don't want to just walk away from that. If you walk away from that, it'll cost you way much more money in the long run. So they'll finish their portion of the contract. The finishing of those fields was down in the building project.
The prep of those fields was in the original contract we awarded last November.
Correct.
Before everything went crazy.
Absolutely.
So they'll just seed those areas?
Is that the plan, Chris, to just seed or?
Right now, they're aggregate for turf.
Okay.
They're aggregate paved for prep for turf at this point in time,
According to the contract we.
according to their contract as it sits now.
You got a question?
I just want to know if Scans is going, if you will provide Mr. Green and Mr. Perrine with hard hats and vests.
Absolutely. I'm waiting on you. Come see us. I have guys on site every day. We'd love to have you guys come up and take a look.
Yeah, I was going to say, any board members, if you want to come by the site and take a tour, stop off at our trailer. We can't do it for the general public because of insurance reasons, but for board members, we can have someone walk you
Oh,
around.
I have a nice hard hat.
Gotta get a vest.
All right, that's it.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, moving along to the action items for this evening. Action item A, approval of the contract amendment 10 for the H&H study that was required for the building permit for the early site package at the Cherry River site.
Amendment 10 was, do we have that?
Okay.
I don't think it's on that.
Use of facilities. Use of facilities.
Is that something we've covered or talked
It's-
about?
Yeah, it's ZMM.
Yeah, we had to add a hydraulic study to get a permit, a building permit in
Oh.
Ridgewood. When we did the site.
That was back several months ago.
Yes.
Several
a
months
year or
ago.
two ago.
Here's the original copies of it. I emailed that, thought I emailed that to everybody. But it's $10,200. Terradon did the work, it had to do the work to get the building permit, so that's what we had to do.
This is on the Richard side?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd suggest making a picture of it so that she can be on this
Are you going to table?
table.
Does it hold somebody up from getting paid?
Uh-huh.
Would be better.
But it would be, I don't guess it matters. Holding it till the 18th, the
That's
next
fine.
will be just table, we can get it back there. if you want.
You remember how much that study was? That
$10,220.
What do you folks want to do? Do you want to hold it off till next meeting?
And it went up to 10,200? I want to see it.
it was a study, wasn't it? on-
It's an H&H study, we can get you a copy of it, we should have one here, because we had to have one filed with the building permit.
Well, I mean, I want to see the contract amendment.
It's not an amendment, is it?
That's what it says.
It's amendment to our
It's amendment.
contract.
Oh, okay.
We have it, I mean, I would honestly table if there's questions, I think it's up to you all. This is a copy of it, from what way we would now give you time to look at it.
Now, do we have a motion to table that?
And then when you just say that, we'll just table item A, just say.
Okay, so we're going to table action item A. So moving along to action item B, approval of the contract with Learning Without Tears. That's a handwriting. Dr. Sarah Lee.
That is just a contract to provide professional development this fall when school starts for our teachers with the handwriting volunteers program.
So did you say training?
Yes, professional development.
Will that be on like a CE day or,
It'll be during that time for back to school prep.
any discussion on action item B? Thank you.
Have you used this before? Do you recommend it?
7 of our 9 schools have used, well, 3 of our 9 schools have used the materials before. Then we have others that are interested in moving forward with it. But yes.
I think they have pretty good.
Yes, highly recommended by our occupational therapists, especially for reversals and things related to reading.
Next, action item C, approval of contract with Jennifer McMillian. Ms. Young?
That is a LPN service that we've contracted with Jennifer for the last probably 3 years, 2 or 3, and she serves a diabetic student with 504.
So most of these are renewals.
Previous.
All of these are renewals,
Okay.
yes. The 3 LPNs have 504s plans, which are accommodation plans. Recommendation of their pediatrician, they have to have insulin during the day, and only licensed nurses can give insulin. So, and it's uncontrolled diabetic students. So those are the 3 LPNs, Amy, Tracy, and they serve at Cherry River, Valley River, and I think Amy is at Panther Creek.
These paid for with federal or state special ed?
That's county funds.
County?
504s are own,
County fund.
they're really not special ed, I just lump them in with mine so Christy doesn't have to stay.
Any questions on items C, D, or E? Approval contract with Jennifer McMillian, approval contract with Tracy Frazier, approval of contract with Amy Mentor. If not, do we have approval of contract with Amy Williams, speech language pathologist, Ms. Young?
We are short two speech and language pathologists in the county, and she picks up the slack for that. She is a retired speech and language pathologist, and she was in today, and she said, as soon as you get somebody, I'm glad to step out, but we have posted and don't have any applicants for those 2 positions. So she fills in, and it is a 10-day out. So if we do post and get somebody, we can break this contract within 10 days. So that's not an issue.
So you just keep reposting the jobs?
Right. Ms. Adkins posts those for us.
Any discussion?
She's the only one in the county?
She's our only contract SPL. We have 3 or 4 others that contract, and they all have full caseloads. So this year she will go to Cherry River. We send her different places, but for this fall she will be serving the Cherry River population.
Okay. I saw that 18 hours and I thought, how's she going to do all
Yeah,
of it?
no, she just does one school.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Action item G, approval of the contract with Kylie Price, certified occupational therapy assistant.
Yes. Kylie serves several of our homebound students, and she works with Jenna, our occupational therapist, who has a pretty high caseload, and she comes in and picks up the leftover, and this is funded through federal programs, my IDEA special ed grant. Amy Williams is county funded.
Any discussion? Item H, approval of contract with Rebecca Campbell, LLC behavior analyst.
Yes, she's our certified behavior analyst, and she works with our teachers and some of our paraprofessionals. She writes programming for students on ABA therapy. She provides consults for behavior issues that we have, and she specializes in autism. And we rely on her pretty heavily. She increased her days a little this year. Last year, she dropped some days because she has children of her own, but she increased a little bit, and we do use her quite frequently, and she is paid through my special ed federal grant.
Any questions from Ms. Young? Thank you. Next action item, I, approval to renumber Nicholas County BOE policy to KG to Neola policy 7510, use of facilities.
Yes, this was loaded in your board packets, and I also emailed it to you, to your gentlemen. This is a policy that we've had in effect for, I don't know, a year or so now, and we're just going to pull it over into Neola, which we've been working on a revision of our policy manual now for a good while. And so this is, I think, is one of the last policies that we need to pull over there. So if you have any questions specific to the policy, I'd be happy to answer those.
Is it already in the Neola policy?
No, this is to move it over to Neola.
Well, what is it? Have we seen it?
Yes, it's in your board packet, and this is a policy that's currently in effect in our old policy manual. So our previous policy manual, before we started moving things over to Neola, it was there. We're simply pulling this over in to renumber it to match the Neola numbers. Instead of keeping it as a policy, you know, whatever it is, KG, it's now going to be Neola policy 7510. So you're not changing the policy in any way. This is the policy that's already been in effect. You're simply renumbering the policy.
So it has the red gem. I'm assuming that's the red gem in Richwood.
Well, that would be any of our facilities. So, you know, if someone wants to use a gym for a particular reason, that's the policy deals with all of our facilities, whether it's an elementary school or the high school.
Yeah, the reason you mentioned that was to cover the floor if needed.
Okay, that's in the administrative guidelines that are pursuant to this policy. So that's the administrative guidelines are J. So I know that's kind of confusing. So in the policy for the use of facilities, it requires the superintendent to develop administrative guidelines for the use of our facilities because it requires board approval for people to use our facilities if they're doing so for profit. So you have two matters here. We're asking to renumber the use of facility policy that's already in existence from policy KG to policy 7510. Then we're going to be asking you to approve the administrative guidelines and fee schedules for that.
So that's only if it's for profit.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, any public uses,
Right.
as long as the principal or person in charge of the building.
Right, and the idea is under West Virginia code, we're only allowed to the use of our facilities for certain reasons. So you don't necessarily want to exclude everybody that's for profit because you have, you know, people run camps, stuff that's related to school activities that we do. I know we never used school facilities when we did this, but when my daughter was a majorette, you know, the feature twirler at Marshall gave her private lessons, always drove her to Huntington, but if you had a situation like that, but I was paying her, but if somebody wanted to pay for private twirling lessons, I mean, we have majorettes in both bands, something like that, I think it's related to the facility, and we want to make sure that our students have access to that in those cases.
basketball camp, something.
Basketball camp, yeah.
And the groups that raise money for sports and band and.
Right,
You'd have photography.
yeah.
Which is a private concern that comes in.
Right. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't want someone to use the facilities. For instance, I'm an attorney. It would be highly inappropriate for me to say, okay, after hours, I'm gonna hang out my shingle and I'm going to engage in the private practice of law and I'm going to have people come to my office up here. That would, of course, not be appropriate, but something like a basketball camp or, twirling lessons or something like, or a tumbling clinic for cheerleaders. They bring somebody in to do tumbling or to choreograph their routine, that sort of thing.
Now, how does that, what if grade school basketball want to use the facility, although it's not school sponsored?
That would be nonprofit.
It's not for profit.
It's not for profit, so they would be permitted to use it without cost.
And who's that up to?
The principal.
And the principal made the request for the red gym because of the flooring.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, action item J, approval of administrative guidelines and fee schedule for policy 7510. And you just covered that, right?
Correct, and we did consult with the principals, to make sure that that met their concerns as well, and that's where the provision in there for the floor in the red gym. It is my understanding if someone seeks to use the red gym and the floor needs to be covered, that it takes about 8 hours to cover the floor, then to pull the floor up and to clean the floor. So Mr. Williams did ask that we include that in the administrative guidelines fee schedule.
Any discussion? Action item K, approval of the MOU with Cordell Cody McClung, MA.
Yes.
That's you.
Yes, Mr. McClung is running a private, he's providing private coaching services to numerous students and using our facilities, and this would just be approval of the MOU with him to do that.
Which facility is that?
I think right now it's just Nicholas County High School, but it could potentially be the old main.
It is also.
Is it? Okay.
Both of those are included.
Basketball.
This is written in such a way to let him use any facility really that he needed to.
Okay, but that's still up to the principal if there's
Absolutely.
other things going on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And he is charging a fee to students, correct?
He is. Well,
Does
it's my
he supply his own liability insurance, or do we cover that?
If he is for-profit, and if he's for-profit, then he has to have liability insurance, and that expense would be on him. If he's not for-profit, in other words, he's using the fees to purchase supplies and water and that sort of thing, and it's, he's putting in his bank account to pay his rent with or whatever, then that would just be something that would fall under our general liability.
Is that $1 million policy that you have now?
Yeah.
You say we haven't been?
No, he would have to have it.
Yeah.
That's the same policy that they would have if they were transporting students to,
Correct.
it's a standard.
Correct.
So in item 9 there on his contract, he will make sure the building is left as he found it, so to speak.
Correct.
And clean it, and, or pay for the custodial fees to have it cleaned.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion to, is there any of these action items that you all want to vote on separately?
Remember table A.
Right.
Mr. President, I move that we approve action items B through K, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and K, as presented, and table item A.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Penix to approve action items B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, and table action item A. Do we have a second?
Second. You got it. Okay.
seconded by Mr. Green.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. That brings us to our consent items. Mr. Hess.
All right, first thing on the finance agenda is payment of current invoices. If you have any questions.
I have a couple.
Okay.
So, Steptoe and Johnson, lawyers, what's that for?
They are legal counsel for some of the work, do you want to address that?
Yeah.
FEMA work we're doing.
We have had to have consultation for permits entering the access roads for the Glade Creek property. We've had to have work on DEP, EPA, just several different permits. And she also worked with FEMA as far as, I can give you an itemized list if you need it, but she worked with FEMA to make sure we have to establish milestones. So when we have to make what's called adequate progress. So from June 23rd till the schools are completed, we had to do a, FEMA has to constantly review what we're doing. And if it appears at any time that we're not making adequate progress, we could lose the funding because our cap is 8 years. So they've continually evaluated our progress and we've made adequate progress. So hitting year 6, we have asked for an extension, which we have a provisional extension right now until December of '24. But FEMA asked us to put together milestones and to put together an adequate progress definition, which this board did vote and approve that definition. It is, and also the milestones that we selected. And so this attorney worked with FEMA and SBA and architects and to put all of that together. And in putting all of that together, it has now been sent to SBA as of June 15th, and SBA has sent it on to, it's my understanding, it's in FEMA's hands now for evaluation, but it's had the blessing of everybody so far. So that's something that's critical, that we have an attorney who understands like the environmental laws and permitting and things like that, and FEMA to help keep us on track in the next one.
So are those funds paid by us or FEMA? Do we get reimbursed?
Well,
No.
those funds we won't.
And then, SES, $43,659.53. I'm assuming those are for salaries.
They're for salaries for folks that we have contracted through the SESC.
So do those, if I get on the certified list at the state, are those people listed?
No.
So, what's the advantage of hiring through them?
You want to address that?
Well, I can, we can tag team. So the SESC, and it's something that I can actually ask the director to come up and speak to the board if you would like also, and he did that before, and it would be nice maybe to have him come up and speak again. But what we're doing is we're contracting services, not people. And, you know, we have some positions that, you know, aren't even necessarily listed on the certified list. Melissa can probably address that a little better. Would you mind coming up and talking about that? I don't know that I can give you an in-depth explanation, but it's something that's been used all over the state. There was a case in Mon County with the RISA, and it's the same exact process, same exact thing being used. And it's actually cheaper to run because we don't have to provide, benefits and things like that in different instances. So it's actually a pretty good deal for us. But
So
Jason would be good to bring up and speak to you, and I know he would do it.
So, those salaries, they don't get insurance, they don't get,
Some do, some don't. Which we could go into executive session and we can tell you the individuals and what all's involved if you would like. So, of course, Mr. Prime, you're familiar with the certified list. Every position that we hire for that certified list, there's a specific position code that we find on a list that the state provides us. And so particularly with service personnel, there's not a whole lot of flexibility there. They're either on that list or they're not on that list. So for instance, when we had the extra custodial help during COVID, we hired those positions through the SESC because they were part-time, and because they were part-time, we didn't have to provide those benefits, and also, it was sort of, that situation was just in such flux that if we didn't need them anymore, we wanted to have the ability to say, okay, we don't need you anymore, and not pay those people, or if the school went on remote, or we had to close down, or the governor sent us home again, then those people were at will, and they just worked when they worked. There was no, the same thing with the COVID tracers. There was nothing on the certified list where I could put those people on that certified list and not be in some trouble with the state. And then if we had hired those as regular custodians, then they'd have been half-time custodians, and then we'd have had to limit, they'd been entitled to benefits, and then we'd had to go through the whole RIF transfer process then to eliminate those positions.
So I asked this same question at our training last Friday and Saturday, and there were a couple people that said, well, the reason some people do it is so they can hire who they want. And so when you hire these people, do you still follow
We don't.
they hire them?
They hire them.
They do the interviewing and
They do the interviewing. If we want to participate, we can. I can tell you, I've never participated in an interview. I think, I don't know if Chris Hanshaw ever has. You did? Chris Hanshaw participated in an interview because some of his was very specific to what he was looking for. The others, nationwide search, for example, we had an opportunity during COVID to request $50,000 for COVID support. And so, of course, if there's ever an opportunity to request money, I ask every time I grab it. So, of course, I got awarded it. So one of the things was I was able to pay for a COVID tracer. It was wearing our teachers out. We could not get, Braxton County had 2 positions posted. They could not get anyone through the SESC. We gave our nurses a stipend or some kind of benefit because they were working long hours. And so anyway, we used grant funds to support that. Then we had like the COVID. So it's very complex. If you sit down and, like I said, probably the easiest thing is if we could get the director up here, and that way you can ask questions and he can explain it to you. But there was confusion, I know, that I heard about. We didn't hire the individuals. There's contracts.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, and I'm glad, and I think this is the best thing to happen. Please ask and let us please explain. So I can ask him to come up and speak, and I'm sure that he will. And if we have a list of questions, or hit him up with whatever, he'll explain it. But yeah, we have one position right now. We tried service personnel, or for payroll. This payroll position. We tried professional, and people only lasted a couple weeks. And if payroll's not covered, we've got a problem. So we went through the SESC, and fortunately, our person who was retired came back through the SESC and has been working, and we're very grateful for that. So, and kind of another issue that we have, so state code differentiates between service and professional personnel, and they make that designation on the possession of a 4-year degree. So there's some people, you know, for instance, with like who Mr. Hanshaw hires, they don't necessarily need a 4-year degree to do what they do, but that position doesn't exist in the service listing. But we couldn't hire it professional because then you're gonna really limit the pool of people that you can pull from. So what this also allows us to do then, people who necessarily don't have the 4-year degree, maybe have an associate's degree, but don't qualify for a professional position, but they have the skill to do what we need to do, then it just opens us up to a wider pool of applicants.
And I did have Mr. Butcher come up and speak in one of our board meetings because there was so much false information going on, and he really laid it out, spelled out everything, and he's, you know, he would be good to explain it.
So when they hire, do they use the same set of rules that we do, or they just, it's up to them?
It's up to them. It's up to them. I know that they do, I know they've done national searches. For theirs, we don't do national searches, we do state, you know.
So this 43,000 so much, is it all salaries, or is it like benefits too?
It would be, it's the amount that they invoice us plus their 5% fee. So, and whatever their benefit package is, or they offer at the SESC, I'm sure they pass that along to us as well.
And that varies with the number of employees they provide, is that correct?
We contract for a number of different individuals.
How often do we pay $44,000?
I'm not sure what period that covers.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't. I can provide that for you. That could be.
Like, I wondered if that was every month.
I can go back and check. I'm not familiar right off the top of my head.
My concern is, every year during personnel season, it's always recommended, oh, we gotta cut these teachers, but we got all these other people that we're paying out of, in a different group that a lot of people don't know about. And so, I'm just asking.
Yeah, we can definitely go over that with you, and when we do any RIF and transfer, you know, of course, we can provide you any information you want.
Most of those people that are hired are specialized needs of some
Yes.
sort that we go
Yes.
through them.
Yes.
Not necessarily a classroom teaching position.
Right.
And I know that many other counties do the same thing through, not only this, there are other consortiums in the state that do the hiring
It's
now.
very,
But,
it's used a lot.
And I think all of the positions probably pay less, or most of them pay far less than what a teacher would make anyway, and many of them are temporary positions, like the COVID tracer or the COVID custodians. There's just more things we needed long term.
And Dr. Phoenix, are you involved with that?
I don't do, I do the hiring only when they recommend it. It'd be from the SESC, but I don't participate in any of the events to hire somebody. I just, at the end of it, they present a list of names and we say yea or nay.
Okay.
Well, we still approve it, don't we? I mean, even if it comes from them, it still comes to us for approval.
Not the individuals,
Not the
just the
individual.
contracts.
Just the MOU.
Yeah.
So we bring to you an MOU with the SESC to hire, 13 COVID custodians. I think that's what we hired for that. It was 13 COVID custodians, and then the board approved that, and then people filled out an application, which honestly, we didn't get very many applicants, so it was pretty much if you filled out an application, you got hired. So they would fill out an application with the SESC, and then the SESC says you're hired.
So
We struggle to find people.
So we don't get a list of those names?
No.
We get the MOU, the agreement with them to hire, and then they do the hiring.
So do they do background checks on those people?
If they're in our schools, we do.
We do.
So we go ahead and do that part? Okay.
We even, for volunteers, we even have background checks. That's something that we implemented when I first came on board.
Okay, any other discussion on that? I have one other thing, and I'm sure, I think I know what you're gonna say, but, so ZMM, 60,000 so much, and 16,000 so much, is that reimbursed by FEMA?
Some may be, some may not be.
So, yes, it depends on the work that they're providing. They have some work right now that they're doing for us that's not going to be reimbursed. They have a contract with us to build the schools or to design the schools. That will be reimbursed. We take all the invoices, get them together, and print one check, or two checks in this case. The two that you're looking at there is for each location, and it does, I don't believe it includes any other outside work, but I want to double check that for sure.
Okay, well,
Work that's being redone. So for example, the Glade Creek, not the Glade Creek project, the Cherry River project, since it went out to bid and it came in 17 million over, they did their work. So since they did their work, FEMA only pays once. So their redesign work comes from us. So that's
every
what
time
have
we
to
send
pay.
it back for redesign, that's on us.
Yes, yes.
And so that's why it's important to do those options, to go ahead and have them do the options, because if you send it back, it's going to, okay, thank you.
You're fine.
Any other questions from Mr. Hess on the payment of current invoices?
If there are none, did you? If there are none, no others, I do not have any surplus property for this meeting, so that will conclude the financing work.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a motion to, is that to pay those?
Excuse me, Mr. Hess, you'll get back to us on that, how often we pay that amount or how much we pay?
I'm sorry,
I said, you'll get back to us on how much we're paying and how often we're paying the SES?
Yeah, sure, I sure will. I will at the next meeting.
Okay, so do we have a motion to, for the payment of the current invoices?
I'll make it.
Motion was made by Mr. Berry.
Second.
Dr. Penix seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
You voted in favor?
Okay, so next is personnel. Do we need to go into executive session for this?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Mr. President, I move we go to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
okay.
Mr. Green, second.
Mr. Green seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 6:12. Do we have a motion to come out of the executive session?
So move.
We have a motion to come out of executive session by Dr. Penix, seconded by Rick Green. At 7:14. All in favor?
Aye.
No decisions were made during the executive session. We are now to the personnel agenda.
Yes, I passed out to you an updated copy of the personnel agenda, and you also notice on page 3, there's the list of our current vacancies. The changes are in red. An updated copy has been made available to the public and also members of the press, but I will read the changes. Under professional, Amanda Bever, employee in the position of first grade teacher at Cherry River Elementary School, effective with the start of the 22-23 school year. Under service, Eugenia Brown, employee in the position of Secretary 3, Accountant 3, Transportation Supervisor, effective July 6, 2022. Under professional extracurricular, there were no applicants for the volleyball coach. That position will be reposted, so it's been removed from your agenda.
Now, to be listed under professional, the person has to have at least a 4-year degree, is that correct?
For professional, yes, professional extracurricular, that's included our coaches, but you don't have to have a 4-year degree to be the coaches, and sometimes we'll have aides that serve as tutors.
But not service?
Yes. We've had aides, so like, for instance, if we have like after-school tutors, or summer school tutors, and we don't have any teachers apply for those positions, we will fill them with aides sometimes, if no teachers apply. And then our coaching positions are always listed under professional extracurricular, but there's no requirement that a coach have a 4-year degree. But under professional, just plain professional, all of those have 4-year degrees and they have some sort of licensure or something that qualifies them for the position that they're recommended for. And under consent, we're going to remove the provision to reclassify service employees. On page 2, there's a couple of resignations. Derek Silman resigns his position as teacher with Nicholas County Schools effective June 30th, 2022. And Sam Strawn resigns her position as teacher with Nicholas County Schools effective July 5th, 2022. And of course, then on page 3 is the current list of vacancies. You'll notice that with the 5 resignations that we have on the agenda this evening, we have 16 classroom teachers that are vacant, and we have 4 other professional positions that are vacant. That's a literacy coordinator at Cherry River and a Title I facilitator at Somersville Elementary, of course the principal at Birch River, and an itinerant counselor.
These 16 positions are either currently posted or will be posted tomorrow.
Correct.
And so,
unless there's,
quite a
if it
number.
says potential hire, well, so for instance, the first grade, that name is on the agenda tonight. And then a couple of other positions, there's some applications that they're going to sort through and determine if anybody is qualified, and if they have qualified individuals, I'm sure they probably will do interviews and send me a recommendation, or they'll send a request to have it reposted.
just one other question. In regard to personnel season, we had people riffed, professional personnel that were riffed, and have they been reassigned? And how many of them, or all of them, or none of them?
Yes, we had 2 people actually had their contracts terminated. They were on permit, and per West Virginia code, the teachers on permit, they're automatically released at the end of the year. But those people were hired back into positions very shortly, one at the very next board meeting.
So everybody that went out on that has been hired back?
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
And I'll entertain any questions that you have.
And the questions? Do we have a motion to approve the personnel agenda?
So moved.
Oh,
Oh, and no discussion, right? So he,
well,
So moved.
Just, I can't vote on the ones.
right,
we want to pull the assistant cheer coach at Richwood High School and vote on it separately.
separately.
Okay, this one here. Mr. President, I move that we approve the personnel agenda all except for the position of professional extracurricular assistant cheer coach at Ridgewood Middle School. Heather Williams, we remove that and vote on that separately.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Berry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. President, I move that we employ Heather Williams in the position of assistant cheer coach at Ridgewood Middle School effective upon completion of any WVSSAC WVDE requirements.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Moose seconds. If there's any discussion on this, Mr. Green has to step out of the room. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. So Mr. Green abstained from voting on that. Everyone else, yes. Okay, that brings us to item 9, superintendent's information.
I don't have anything to add after the presentation. If you all have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions for the superintendent? Okay, item 10, reports, SESC, Dr. Pennings.
We had our last meeting for the fiscal year on the, I think it was the 15th of June, and it was just a regular business meeting. Nothing else was discussed, no new programs, or no new incentives on the part of the SESC. So basically, it was just a very quick meeting and just covered finances and any new personnel.
Do you do that, do you meet personally, or do you do that?
We do it telephonically.
Okay. Mrs. Valletta, are there any delegations?
No, sir.
Thank you. Number 12, items for future agendas.
Mr. President, you mentioned earlier about looking at the meeting time, and maybe we want to discuss that at the next meeting, the time of our meetings.
Yes, I would like to put on the agenda the time for the meetings.
That you want to discuss it, or you're going to vote on it?
Discussion action item.
I would like on the agenda, the RHS band trip to band camp. Also, Mr. President, I recommend that we have a special session at the earliest convenience of this board. At that time, I would like for us to be able to receive and for discussion a copy of the superintendent's contract and one of in-house counsel, Adkins. I would like to have a Bowles-Rice representative there to help us if we're having any confusion, one of our lawyers. I would like at that meeting to have a review of the comprehensive educational facilities plan. I would like the most current FEMA 428 mediated agreement. We've had a number of scope of work changes. And I would also like an itemized printout of all FEMA money spent, where it went, including committed funds. That's my motion.
So your first motion,
Let me add, if there are others that you would like to see the contracts of, we can add to that. Are there any others that anyone would like to see the contracts?
so you said the contract for the superintendent,
An in-house counsel, Atkins.
does she have a contract?
She's an employee. She's an employee, just like any other professional.
There would be no contract with her, just her employment.
I mean,
So she doesn't, Mr. Moose, there's no contract for the council. She's an employee, she's like a teacher or anyone else that's employed.
Okay. Then I amend my,
So superintendent's contract, the 428 plan, you wanted to, a copy of that in discussion?
yes, the most frequent, most current mediated agreement.
CEF.
The comprehensive education facilities plan. And an itemized printout of all FEMA money spent. Where it went, and include in that all committed funds.
So the motion's on the floor, do we have a second?
This one was just a request from a board member, I mean.
Oh, it's not a motion.
Not a motion, so.
So any board member can request a special meeting.
Well, they can make a request, and then that's, we normally say it's items for future agenda if you have any ideas, but in order to call for a special meeting, it has to occur with either the board president calling for the meeting or 3 members of the board. Any 3 members. In order to call a meeting of the board.
Was that for a special meeting or
Special.
Oh, you want a special?
Special as soon as possible. We need to act fast.
As soon as possible, as in this week or next week?
Whatever is convenient for everyone. This week if possible.
He's out of town starting tomorrow, so.
You're out of town
till Wednesday, next Wednesday. And we have to coordinate with Bowles Rice to see what time we could meet.
13th?
That's Wednesday.
Wednesday, 13th.
No, you
Regional home on the 18th. Kevin should be back home on the 13th.
Might be that you need to contact Bowles Rice and see when they can be here, if that's who you want to have.
Well, they're the board's attorney, right?
We do utilize them, yes, and not all the time.
So Mr. Moose, the superintendent's going to be gone for a few days.
Well, we may have to discuss things in executive session that concern her, and she wouldn't be in that discussion.
I think we need to have legal counsel on that, because if you're talking about her contract, you'd certainly have to involve the superintendent. Now, you may deal with some matters, and the time that she can't be in the meeting is when you're doing her evaluation.
And she would be the one to determine if it was, if she wanted to open her executive session, correct?
Well, it's not a hearing.
It's not a hearing.
It's just,
But you can
If
still-
he's asking executive session, I'm to be present.
Yeah, basically, it's informational, isn't it? It's just, it's informational and clarification.
The only time we can meet in executive session absent the superintendent is during her evaluation. But, you know, we can check with legal counsel and make sure, but I think I'm pretty sure on that one.
So basically, we have the 14th, the 15th, or do it at the 18th, instead of having a special meeting, put those on the 18th agenda. Which,
We could do it on the 18th, or we could have a separate meeting on, and we have the President's Retreat for School Boards Associations on the 15th and 16th, so we can't on Friday. I can't do it on Thursday.
How long does it take to gather up all that funding information?
I think that's something that Kevin presents to you every month.
What was the question?
The funding request, I think you present that to him every single month.
Oh, yeah,
You get that every month.
ready, all
the Yep.
financial.
It'd be simple to summarize, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's already summarized, I
Yeah.
can print it all.
That you get it every month and print it now. I can get you my contract right now too, if you want it.
They haven't been here, the new board members.
428 plan can be printed, CFP can be printed, all that stuff's available.
Wouldn't take long to put the documents
It's
together.
all there.
So, Rick, you work, I mean, you're busy during the day? You
Let me
good?
know.
Okay.
Chip's a lot work.
so, the 15th, I'll be at the President's Conference, 15th, 16th, so that would either be, have it next Thursday, the 14th, or wait and do it the 18th.
Things like that, I think you'd probably want to do in a separate meeting, just a thought, because they can get elongated in executive session, that type of thing. And it just depends on what you might be having on your regular agenda for the 18th. It could be, you know, a rather lengthy period of time. I would suggest that we meet on the 14th, which is a Thursday, if everybody's amenable to that, maybe. Mr. President?
Afternoon, evening, or what?
6 o'clock.
Well, it depends on if and when Bowles Rice
We can check with them.
can represent.
See if they'll be there.
I can call, or you can call, or we can call together, whatever you want, because that's what people are authorized to call.
I get to talk to lawyers?
You did. For president, that's for president and the superintendent.
Well, then, let's keep 14. Are we going to do evening? Well, it depends on them. Okay, listen.
They usually come in the evening.
I mean, if you want
Yeah.
6 o'clock. I mean, is that something that you're wanting to pay them to drive here, or is that something you wanted to try to do by phone, or is that?
If they come, again, well, they'll charge you anyway, it doesn't matter.
Right, you'll be paying travel time and.
In case we need clarification or have any questions, I think we'd have to ask the attorney.
Now, is the board's attorney not your attorney? I mean, they would be.
Oh, I have a personal attorney,
Okay,
so
so,
I'm not concerned. I mean,
Okay.
I have a contract, you can buy it out, or I can work, it's up to you. I'm okay either way.
okay, So do we have a motion to have a special meeting on the 14th?
You can just call.
I'll just call a meeting on the 14th.
In the evening, in the afternoon.
14th.
It might be the 14th, and that's, might wait to hear from Bowles Rice about the time, but they say they can't come that evening, and they have to come during the afternoon or something.
Or 15.
Tentatively planned for 6 with the.
So we'll put the meeting notice out after we talk to Bowles Rice.
Okay.
You know, it has to, have to go out on Tuesday, the 12th.
And so once again, that special meeting is going to cover superintendent's contract. Is that discussion? Mr. Moose, is that discussion action or discussion?
Discussion, possible action, sure.
And the CEFP plan, you just want a copy of that, or do you want a discussion? Is that a discussion item?
Well, I think we would have to do both.
Okay. And the 428 plan as well,
Yes,
discussion as well.
yes.
And then itemized FEMA. Did I miss anything?
No, sir.
Okay. So that takes us to item 13, future meeting dates. Regular meeting, Monday, July 18th, 2022, at Nicholas County BOE office, starts at 5 o'clock. And then regular meeting, Monday, August 1st, 2022, at Nicholas County Board of Education office, start time at 5 o'clock. Regular meeting, Monday, August 15th, 2022, at Nicholas County Board of Education office, start at 5 o'clock.
Unless we change those times.
Unless we change those times. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Dr. Penix, motion to adjourn, seconded by Rick Green. You have to have the time for that. 7:37.